Hello. How is everyone this evening? Well, we're back to reading Bickie's Thunder Egg. We're on chapter 3, Uncle Dirk's Secret. So, let's begin. When John came home from Marshalltown the next afternoon, Bickie could see, before his big brother got down from the wagon, that he was unhappy and worried about something. The two younger boys ran and opened the gate and then climbed up into the back of the wagon to ride the short distance to the farm. They did not shout to John that he must whitewash their stone at once. There was something in John's face that held them off. There was something. They followed him into the house. "What is it, son?" Mother asked as she looked up from the wash tub where she was rubbing the clothes. "Couldn't you get the machine fixed?" "Oh, I got it fixed all right. But I met old Hake Collins in town." Bickie saw the shadow brush across Mother's face. "Why did he say? What did he say, John? Tell me." "He says he's going to foreclose the 1st of January if we can't raise the $300. John's voice hung like a cloud in the big room. Bickie looked up at the open window. A cold draft must be coming through it. He felt suddenly chilly. Mother's face lost some of its usual rosy color for a minute. Then the red flushed back into her cheeks. She laid her hand, wet and wrinkled from all the washing, on John's shoulder. He wouldn't turn a widow woman and these little children out in January. No, not in January. I will go have a talk with him. You are not to worry. She had John sit down and rest for a while she fixed him a great slab of fried cornmeal mush. "Hey, Bick, Tom, I forgot. Run out and look underneath the wagon seat. There's a pile of jelly." The two boys rushed out the door and came back in a minute, lugging a heavy wooden pail of jelly between them. John opened it and spread that lovely red jelly thick on his fried mush. "Would you boys like some too?" Mother asked. Bickie and Tommy. Would they ever? The sight of that delicious jelly melting on that slab of mush on John's plate was just too much for them. They coughed and they choked out the answer. Oh, they would like some very much indeed. With Mother singing at the wash tub, the house was cooling in the summer evening. With John home again and the jelly, the world seemed good again. And Bickie, seeing that John was full and in better spirits, stood by his chair. "We want you to whitewash a stone for us. Mother says we can use it to hold open the bedroom door. We want to whitewash it like Red Hog Smith's stone." "Oh, where's the stone?" John pushed back his chair and he looked at Mother. "Well, go and bring it." So Bickie and Tommy hurried into their room and they brought out this great big egg-shaped stone. "Oh, so that's what you want whitewashed." John looked at the stone. "I never saw a stone like that one before." "Where did you find it?" "We dug it out of the ground," Tommy said. "It has been there ever since the flood. Maybe it washed over here from China or the North Pole." "Oh, how do we know?" John laughed. "Get some corn husks and lay them out by the stove. We don't want whitewash to drip on Mother's clean floor." That night, after the two smaller boys were in bed, Mother and John sat in the kitchen and talked for a long time. The door was open between the lean-to bedroom and the kitchen. Bickie could hear part of what they were saying. He knew that they were trying to figure out some way to get the money for old Hank Collins. He knew that when Father died last year, Mother had borrowed $500 from Hank. He knew that although they had given him all the corn money last fall, and some from the hogs and some from the calves that they had sold. Still, they were $300 owing. The time to pay it was nearly here. Bickie knew that there was no money for the payment. There would not be any until the corn was husked. That might not even be enough then. Only Dirk were here, Bickie heard Mother say. Bickie could faintly remember Mother's only brother, Uncle Dirk. It was he who had built the little farmhouse a mile east of State Center, Iowa. He built the house, too. Uncle Dirk never married. He lived with them except for the years that he was prospecting in California for gold. Uncle Dirk was a jolly fellow. He had black hair just like Mother's, and red cheeks too, just like hers. He was always making jokes and playing with babies. And Bickie and Tommy were scarcely more than that when he went away. Father and Uncle Dirk went off to the war. Union soldiers, and Uncle Dirk never came back. He died before Vicksburg. He had heard from both Father and Mother. They said it many times. Before Vicksburg. Whoa. It was hard to believe that Uncle Dirk would never come back. With Father, it was different. He had come back, and he was sick and wounded from the service of the Union Army, and he never got well. The boys saw him grow weak and pale, and finally he died last year. It was easy to believe that Father wouldn't come back. Then Bickie brought back his wandering thoughts. He sat up in the bed, careful not to disturb Tommy, who was already asleep. He heard Mother saying something he wanted to hear. He listened with his ears. He listened with his mouth. He listened with his heart. They were talking about Uncle Dirk. The last thing that he had said to me, Veda, there's money in this house to take care of you all till we come back. Then he winked at me and he pointed down to the floor. You know how Dirk was. He loved mysteries and jokes. What do you think he meant? John asked. I thought he meant that there was money hidden in the house somewhere. You know, we're always thought that he brought more than he let on from his mining in California. Well, the house is burned down now. I suppose he put it in the floor somewhere. It would be just like him. No use thinking about it anymore. Funny, he wouldn't have said something to Father about it. John's voice came clear into Bickie's ear. They were separated almost immediately after they joined the army, and they never saw each other again. Did you ever look for wherever he might have hidden it? Bickie could hear the eagerness in John's voice. When your father was sick, I looked 100 times. I'm sure I went over the whole floor, board by board, but none of them looked like they had ever been disturbed. I looked in the walls, too, and even in the cellar. And I looked everywhere. Mother's voice dropped, so he could scarcely hear. It was when I went to Hank Collins. Bickie laid down on his pillow again. The voices in the kitchen were quiet now. Mother and John's shadowed for an instant in the open bedroom door, and then Bickie heard John getting ready for bed in the dark. Again, the memory of the burning house rushed into Bickie's mind. Again, he saw those flames bursting from the windows, and he heard Red Hog Smith's huge, booming voice crackling over the crackling fire. He shrugged in spite of himself. It all came back so real and so frightening. Yes, whatever Uncle Dirk might have hidden in the house was all burned. He tried to forget the house and the war and all the ugly worries about Hank Collins and the mortgage. He tried to forget how Mother's face looked when she looked at John in the afternoon. He tried to think what he could do to earn some money. $300 was a lot to earn before January. It was a week later when John mentioned the matter again. I think I'll go to Marshalltown to get work on the railroad. In 5 months, Mother, I should earn something. You could never earn enough, Mother answered him. We will have to depend mostly on the corn. If it goes at least 60 bushels to the acre, we should get over $100. Corn may not be 10 cents on the bushel this fall. Oh, John sat by the kitchen table, whittling on a leg of an old little bedroom stand that he was making for his mother. I will be able to get the food for the children with the washing and the nursing money. Mother ironed shirts on a wooden board beside the table where the lamp stood. Perhaps we could borrow the money somewhere else. No, Mother, no. John's voice was very determined. We will not borrow any more money. We will sell the farm if we have to, but no more money. Meantime, we will gather every cent we can and apply it on the payment. Perhaps Hake will be satisfied if we can pay most of it. At least he's given us till the New Year's. That's 5 months. But John, no one is buying farms right now. This is the worst time of the year to sell land. I know. John laid his work on the table. But we must trust in God. I won't put it off for another day, Mother declared. I will go see Hank again tomorrow. The next day, Mother put on her black dress. She kissed the little boys goodbye and told them to play nicely, and she would return. They watched her walk down the road. They knew when she went to see Hank. The whitewashed stone stood now, holding open the door in the boys' bedroom. It looked very nice sitting there, and exactly like a great, huge, white egg. The two lads looked at it. Bickie brought up a pencil and wrote E-G-G in big letters. Let's go dig up some more treasures, Tommy suggested. Bickie hesitated. He felt a deep uneasiness inside of him. He knew Mother had gone to see Mr. Collins about $300. He could see Mr. Collins with his blue eyes looking like hard marbles the boys played with at school. He could see Mr. Collins' ugly, sucking, ugly mouth. His hands always looked like they were twisting something, always. Bickie could see Mother in her old black dress with her rosy cheeks and thick curly hair, that little smile on her face. He cringed inside. If Mr. Collins talks mean to Mother, a rush of anger swept over him. He shook Tommy's hand and off of his sleeve. Let's go down the road to meet Mother, he said. I think that she will be coming home pretty soon, and we will be able to get a rise by the fence corner, and we'll almost be able to see all the way to Mr. Collins' place. The boys turned off. Running, they came to the spot of a higher ground where the level countryside spread out before them like a flat table. They waited a very long time. Then they saw Mother. She was walking slowly, looking down at the yellowing grass along the roadside. Now, she must be hearing their voices, surely. When they got near enough to see her face, Bickie thought there was a tear running down her cheek, but he couldn't be for sure. Her voice was merry. She opened her arms and grabbed them up and pleading towards right down that dusty road. Her voice sounded cheerful. When we get home, you boys must go and gather eggs right away. I'm going to make cake for supper. Bickie's mind was relieved, little confused, but relieved. The cloud of trouble that had oppressed him ever since he had overheard the conversation about Uncle Dirk vanished. He and Tommy ran skipping gaily alongside Mother until they came to the little granary house. Mother never mentioned anything about her talk with Mr. Collins. Days went by. The weather grew cold. Autumn was coming. John worked most of the time in Marshalltown at $10 a month. He would have to come home and husk the corn now. Twice Bickie had seen Mr. Collins walking along the north fence of the cornfield. Once he saw him climb the fence and go into the corn. He snapped off an ear of corn and husked it. Then he put it in his pocket. Bickie didn't tell Mother, but in his heart, he grew angry. Well, that ends Uncle Dirk's secret. And there was no pictures in that one. So tomorrow's story is Bickie's soldier coat. So I will see everybody again tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock. Thank you for watching. Okay.